Welcome to the Visitor Center. Today I will be talking with the musician Duane Pitre about his musical background growing up in New Orleans, ducking bullets in Dayton, to grabbing an instrument and beginning a new path away from skateboarding in San Diego. Hope you guys enjoy this conversation.
Okay,
Yeah.
nice.
So anyhow, we'll get into it.
Cool.
Duane, stoked
There it
you're
is.
here. To the audience, I'm holding up his Alien Workshop sticker here
Dude,
with
super, super.
the olive graphic, bro. Did you even eat olives? Were you even into olives?
You know what? I did, and it's funny because my kids, like, since they were like they're 4 and 7, they love olives now, and they have their whole life.
That's crazy.
So that's
Yeah, I
just an
never
olive.
remember like Dwayne munching on some olives or like
Nah, nah, no. That was probably gummy
it was
bears.
never Olive House, Sarge. It was always Waffle House, Sarge.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I think it was just one of those things, right? Blender had this drawing and like, how about these? This is the olives. I'm like, cool, dude. Neil Blender's
Su-
doing my graphics, so
Such a rad graphic. Well, thanks, Dwayne, for being here.
thanks for having me, dude.
Before we get into this, I thought how we talk a little bit about how we met in 1991. And I'm sure there's a couple funny little stories that'll come out of that. But
Oh,
little
wow.
background for everyone. I was living with Chris Carter, Sarge, one of the owners of a skateboard company called the Alien Workshop. And I wasn't even skating for Alien, but I was living with them. And it was at the, do you remember the house?
Yeah, but I didn't realize that like at the time. So how long were you living with him like before that summer?
Um, well, I moved up to Dayton. I lived with Heisman for a little bit. And then I moved in with Sarge. Yeah, I don't know how long I was there before you showed up. But
Well,
yeah, I was still skating for Assault.
yep.
I had went away to Massachusetts to a skate camp and came back, and I think that's about the time when you came.
Okay.
But yeah, a big old house in the hood, Five Oaks, Dayton, Ohio. You
Oh yeah,
know,
I remember having to hit the floor at sometimes,
yeah, dude,
like
gunshots.
gunshots, and then it's
Yeah,
like
we'd be
lamb.
watching on the couch. We'd be watching like videos or TV or something, and we'd be like gunshots, duck. You know what I mean?
I think we were watching like I think I remember watching like like Gwar like VHS is like they're like I don't know live whatever, and I think I remember gunshots at that point. And I was like, this is fucking crazy.
Anyhow, that
Yeah.
was wild. I knew who you were. You probably didn't know me. And Sarge told me you were coming, and I was really stoked I'd get to skate with you. You know what I'm saying?
But
Did
no,
you?
I remember. No, yeah, because I mean, I remember, assault was definitely on my radar. So, and I feel like back then, that's kind of really the way you would know of someone, kind of, right? Because of like,
Yeah, I think the only other thing I could think of was I had a tiny little part in GNS footage, like the truck
oh yeah,
section.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't think
yeah.
you would have watched it, dude, because you were like a main dude. So I was like, oh,
Yeah.
Dwayne. But anyhow,
No,
I
dude,
was so
I love
stoked.
watching that. I love watching that whole thing. I just actually watched footage all the way through for the first time, probably ever since way back, like I don't know, maybe 4 months ago or so, 4 or 5 months
Mhm.
ago. So I saw it then too.
Dude, the GNS team was so huge.
It was
I
giant.
couldn't get on the GNS board team, and I couldn't even get on workshop either.
It was
Did you?
huge.
It was, dude. It was so bloated, but I was stoked. I was a kid. I mean, I was pretty young. Sarge put me on GNS strokes. I was super stoked. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I read those things.
Those things were wild. Anyhow, did you take a Greyhound to come to Dayton? I know you were in France that summer at some point, but
No, I don't think I took a Greyhound. The only time I remember taking a Greyhound was that's just what I remember was being in St. Pete filming, with well, who was there? Deerdeck and then Bo and Scott. Were you out there for that? Like, this is stuff that's
no.
it's stuff that's in memory screen.
Yeah, I know you came for the wrap up of Memory Screen because we got those last little sessions in at the University of Dayton where you got like the Nollie nose blunt slide and
Yeah, and that would have been the end of that summer. I think end of summer was that end of summer 91? I
Mhm.
can't remember.
Yeah, it was.
Okay, okay. Um, but yeah, I don't remember. I think I just flew up. I think I
Okay.
just flew up. But I have zero recollection of how I got there. and how I got back. So you might be right.
Yeah. I just didn't know. I didn't know if you were like, why is this dude living with you, Sarge? Like, he doesn't even write for the workshop. And then I started
No,
I was always hanging out, and I ended up going on like the first couple memory screen tours. That's just because I was your guys' friends, like Rob's and everybody.
but wait, see, I haven't. So when we lived together and shared a room at Sarge's house, you were not on the workshop.
No, dude.
What?
No, no. I was on assault.
I just,
All
I
those
just,
stuff. Yeah, yeah. It was a little, just a little while after uh Rob I quit assault after coming back not long after that skate camp. And Rob was just like, dude, can you not find a board sponsor? And I was like, no, like, and he was
right,
like, why don't you just ride for the workshop? I was like, dude, okay, like, why didn't you guys ask me that a year ago? I could have been in memory screen, bro. No. Uh, but yeah,
right.
I didn't ride for the workshop, or else I would have been in memory screen, right?
I know. Right. And that is like a weird,
That one dude from because of Brian Ridgway, the kid from Sacramento, John Pryor or something. Was that his name?
yeah,
He was on the workshop.
yeah.
But
That's,
it's wild, right?
it's a really interesting thing is like, I think you and I recently talked about this. Like, it was like such like laser focus, like about certain things that like, I think it's just my brain works too. Like there's certain things that I don't remember because I was not like paying attention.
Yeah, yeah. I
and
mean, you
and
should really remember everything.
right. That is but that is so weird just because the way the memory works, right? Is like I
Just
let me
assumed
t-
I was on the workshop because I was living with Sarge and like I
yeah,
was
well,
with everybody from that point forward.
yeah. Yeah, and then like okay, that's a trip. All right, well,
Yeah,
let's
but
move.
anyhow, you came and you were eating all my food. And I was like, Sarge, bro, you gotta feed this dude because I'm not even I'm not even on the workshop. And
Right,
he's eating all my food. I
right.
was probably like Lucky Charms and Fruity Pebbles and like frozen pizzas or something. It was super cheap stuff, but still, I was like on a
Doesn't
budget.
matter. It doesn't matter. I should have been eating your
But
feet. It's
anyhow,
just
we
so
had
like, oh
we had some
God.
good times, bro, in that neighborhood. And all I could think of, just a little couple points, is there was a Jamaican in that neighborhood, and he had super long dreads, like down to his knees, and he walked
Uh-huh.
around in a speedo, and he rode a motorcycle like a Harley on a speedo. Did you ever see that dude?
Uh-uh. I do not remember that. Wait, what? Jamaican Speedo motorcycle?
In Dayton, in like Five Oaks.
No,
Yeah, yeah, it was wild. All right,
I do not remember that at all.
and
I remember how much Sarge paid rent of the that's right? It's
how
so
much
weird.
was it?
$400 and it
Oh
was
my
it was
god,
2 stories with an attic and a basement. I still remember to this day it was $400 for all of that. But I don't remember the thing I should remember. It would be the speed of Jamaican on a motorcycle.
yeah, dude. There's some wild stuff that happened. But the last thing I'll mention is you almost getting jumped at the UD parking lot because he went over to the park and got a drink, and then I see Duane come skating back to the lot, like, get the car started. He's yelling something. We're like, what is he yelling? He's like, start the car.
Dude, I was reminded of that. So coming up here in like 5 weeks, me and my family were driving down to New Orleans for spring break, the kids' school, and we did the first time we did it was last year, and we go through Dayton, right? And so the first leg, the first just 2 day drive, the first leg halfway through, I forget how far Dayton is, maybe like 4 hours or something. And I think my wife was driving, and I look over, just right over the side of the freeway, and all of a sudden, immediately, the memory just boom. I see the arena, right, where we skated the curbs in the curb cut, which made it into that last section of memory screen.
Mm-hmm.
Then Alan, there's one side you mentioned, and then right next to it, I saw the park, right, that little park, and right, so I was thirsty, right,
With the
pre-bottled,
water, there's a water fountain on the edge of it
yeah,
too. It's like so
yeah, on edge.
tempting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I'm like, there's no water. We had no water bottles, no bottled water. We didn't, that wasn't a thing. And so I remember skating over there just to get a drink. And right as I started to drink, like pretty much right away, I heard this girl say something, something. And then she goes, "Run, boy, run." And, I'm from New Orleans. I have my wits about me. You know what I mean? I'm like, I look over, and these two dudes are just
Start coming for you.
as fast as fuck, dude. Like lightning speed.
Hmm.
And I run with my board. It's not too far from the parking lot pavement blacktop, and they're close. And I jump on and I push. Keep in mind, like, right, we're like 17, literally top form of skateboarding. And just start pushing
You
as
were
fast as
sprinting
I
so
can,
fast.
and pushing and pushing. And like, if I'd have hit a rock, and I turn around and they're like 4 feet from me, and I keep pushing this, and you can't do that. You can't outrun that when you're about. And then I look back again, and the distance was going, 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 and yeah, dude, they would have beat me to a bloody pulp, dude.
Yeah, I didn't even think about it when you went over there, but my recollection is one of the first times I went to skate there, I did the same thing. I was really thirsty. I skated over there solo. It was like a hot summer day, and then all of a sudden, like I see four dudes, and they don't look like they want to say, "Give me a high five." You know what I'm saying? And they
Yeah.
start walking towards me with like a mug, mean mug, like they want to rob me, and I'm like, all right. So grabbed my board and I ran to the lot and I did the same thing. I pushed back to my car and got out of
So
there.
scared. But it's a trip, huh? Right? I'm like driving on the interstate, and I just so happen to look over at that point in time.
That
And
is
like,
crazy.
that's like 16 hours of driving on the interstate to New Orleans. You know what I mean? I just happen to
Yeah.
look over, and
Just a
I'm like,
flashback.
immediately, I was like, boom. I told the story to my wife. I was like, that's where I almost got the living shit kicked out of me. Oh, man.
Yeah. And okay, let's just get started on your musical journey here. And
All right.
can you recall the bands or artists you might be listening to as a kid? Were you anything spark your interest?
Like what age? Like, what do you,
Like at any age as a preteen, you know what I mean? Like growing up, like any music
yeah.
that hit you.
Yes. I think, I grew up in, I was, my mom, my dad, they were both really into music. They were like, classic rockers. They saw Sabbath and Zeppelin and all those people live back in the day. And so that the radio was just jamming like in New Orleans at the time. You know what I mean? Like a lot of like R&B, Earth, Wind and Fire, and like rock stuff, and then you have your New Orleans music. So, and then I had my own personal, you know, I was really drawn to music, and, I'm sure some of it has to do with, my surroundings and such. But, but yeah, I think, it was like the dawn of MTV, like, and so that really was a big thing to get you sucked into that. And it's like the whole like new wave thing. So, like the first record that my mom, she got me like Beatles album was my first album. And then I bought
Nice.
Flock of Seagulls and Devo 7 inches,
No way.
with my own money.
You had Devo 7 inches when you were young?
Like
That's
Whip It.
wild.
Yeah, it was Whip It.
Yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I
yeah.
mean? Like,
That's still sick though. Like I
yeah,
remember
yeah,
hearing the song
yeah.
and
That
thinking it was cool.
Oh yeah, and then Flock of Seagulls. I can't remember. I still to this day I've tried to remember which one I bought first. I can't remember. But those songs were on MTV, and so I was like, all right. So I bought a little 7 inches, a little record player,
Hmm.
and and then I was like huge into like Duran Duran. My first haircut that I requested, which is probably still a haircut. Like I'm like, well, I've had long hair and stuff, but the haircut I have today, it's like I'm like, I want my hair cut like Simon Le Bon.
That's
Duran
crazy.
Duran.
It's super specific.
Oh, that's just me. Yeah, that's me. It's like so specific. So like I think all of that kind of stuff, like, but music that was like, not just happy go lucky. Can you think about that? Like, I mean, Flock of Seagulls, Whip It, Duran Duran had kind of vibes, and some moody
Yeah,
vibes.
there's some flavor there in those band choices, you know what I mean? And what's
Yeah.
interesting is, I don't know if everyone knows this, but Dwayne grew up in New Orleans area, Metairie. And so you have that whole like Zydeco, I think, right? And like different types of New Orleans style music down there. you would have
Yeah,
heard maybe in the background or
yeah, yeah. New Orleans embraces, I think, a lot of the music from the region, like Southeast Louisiana, right? So like, even though New Orleans is known for a certain type of jazz, you know what I mean, Louis Armstrong and that kind of stuff,
Mhm.
it definitely, fostered, at least in modern times, fostered stuff like Zydeco and different Cajun musics and whatnot. So yeah, it was just a big, but I always had my own thing. And like, I think as a kid, I was always like real introspective kind of, I was an
Mhm.
only child until I was 11 when my sister was born. And so like, I was just always in my own head, this like, and I just like that kind of like, I don't want to say dark because, it's not dark stuff, but I wasn't buying Bananarama 7 inches.
Right. Now, were there any films or other works of art in a broad sense that made an impact on you or you felt was like transformative to your sensibilities?
Like movies and stuff, it was just pretty, I was pretty boilerplate as a kid, I think, just going to see whatever movies, like, I did see Purple Rain in the theater when I was probably 9 years old, which was probably not appropriate, but my mom
I
was,
I, I snuck in and saw Purple Rain too. Like I went to see like another movie, like maybe Raiders of the Lost Ark or something. And when it was over, I was just like Purple Rain. I just walked into Purple Rain, sat down and
did
watched
you?
it. Yeah.
My mom and her friend, my mom is, we have a small age gap. My mom was young when she had me, and she and brought me and then my mom's friend's son, but which I remember like certain scenes in the movie. I'm like, okay, this is weird. but
Yeah.
uh but yeah, so like no really like I think more so like inspiring just like New Orleans, which is almost like a living film noir, you know what I mean? Like so
Did you own any tapes from 80s cheesy hair metal bands?
no, no. I
No.
don't mm, I would say no. My neighbor, he had Motley Crue. I remember hearing like, but that was like the first one that was like it has the beginning where it talks about like Satan and blah 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 blah. It was their first album when they were trying
Uh
to be like,
yeah, well actually that's their second album. The first album was
okay,
Too Fast for Love. The second
okay,
one was Shout at the Devil, which was really cool. The packaging was cool.
yes,
It was black with the pentagram you could only see like
yes,
it was a and then yeah, the imagery was cool, the makeup was
yes,
cool. It was just black and
yes.
red. They like I thought Molly Crew was cool at that album, but then the next album like Girls 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 was total absolute and utter garbage.
Garbage, absolutely. I didn't own that tape. My neighbor did or whatever, and I remember like he'd play, I don't know, like a boombox or something like that.
I had the
But
LP, the album, the
you
Motley
did?
Crue, and yeah, I went and bought it, and I was like, oh, this is the coolest thing, you know.
That's so great. No, that's so great. That's amazing. I think for me, it was like at that time, when did Shout at the Devil come out? Would that have been like
83,
83?
84, something like that.
Uh-huh. So then fast forward to like when I moved to Florida, to St. Petersburg, Florida,
Hmm.
which is, how met when I met both Scott and Lance. I remember cutting grass and taking that money and buying Master of Puppets on cassette.
Nice.
Because I'd hear like, I'd hear that and Ride the Lightning at like skate jams and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like you just hear that like Metallic was pumping. So I remember buying that. So that was like probably the first metal, hair or not,
Yeah,
album that I bought.
I was never, I never went out and purchased like, after I started skating or before like serious metal.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I
Right.
had like my good friend was so into like Metallica and stuff like that. So I heard it all the time. Like
Sure.
like you said, Ride the Lightning and the earlier tapes before that.
Absolutely.
Now, were there any popular artists in the 80s that you liked or admired? You better say Prince, bro, because Prince is the king.
I mean, Prince was like my mom would play it in the house. Like she would play like that music, so yes, I liked it. And then later on would, like his music even more, I think by getting a little older and appreciating it. And then becoming
Understanding his talent.
insane.
Yeah.
Like, you know, what does he played like, you know, he could play like 25 instruments or something
That's
like
what
that.
I'm saying, dude. When I just think, yeah, it took me a little while to get like I liked a Prince a lot when I was young, but when I got older, I was like, oh, his first album was he got his deal when he was like 16. Like the ones where he looks like super ridiculous, where he's wearing like
Yeah.
panties on the cover and nothing, you know. I
Yeah.
was like,
But he was dead serious about it. He wasn't playing around with
oh
his record
yeah,
deal,
dude, the
you know.
music is sick. You know, he programmed everything himself. He played everything himself and he sung it. I mean, yeah, his talent is like insane. But he was probably the best, big popular solo musician to come out of that era.
You know what I bought probably a year and a half ago was the live box set of Prince and the Revolution, right? Yeah, for Purple Rain, right? It's Prince and the
Hmm.
Revolution, right?
Yeah, it was Prince of the Revolution.
It's their famous, was it 1985? I believe it was Rochester. I'm forgetting right now just because I'm blanking. I blank in these situations. It's kind of considered like their best live performance. You know what I mean? Like, you know, Cheap Trick live at Budokan, that kind of stuff. It was like their
Hmm.
like live masterpiece. And there's like a 20-minute version of Purple Rain. Dude, it's insane. So good. It's just the intro is like, I swear it's like 5 minutes before he starts to sing.
that's
It's
that's
sick.
rad.
That's sick. So yeah, so besides you know, that Prince I already mentioned, like, you know, Duran Duran. I was into a lot of like um, you know, Gary Newman, you know what I mean? Like just like a lot of like the Euro,
Hmm.
the Euro like MTV like kind of stuff, which really
Hmm.
kind of started MTV, was that like new wave, you know?
Hmm.
I just liked those kind of sensibilities because it had that kind of still that like dark kind of vibe to it, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, but
mysterious.
still melodic and groovy.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? That's what I
Absolutely.
that's what I like about, like I said, I was never into super heavy stuff, but I like always like more melodic, a group, something with a groove, you know what I mean? Like
Sure.
uh or sad stuff like Morrissey. But I feel like a lot of their music is like you listen to Johnny Marr or the bass, you know what I mean? The bass lines, especially those early Smith's albums, this is just like really funky bass lines, you know what I mean? So yeah, I
Yeah,
really
he passed. What's his name? Andy. What's his
yeah,
name?
Andy Rourke,
Yeah,
rest in peace.
yeah, and like, you know, I remember talking to some, you know, a buddy of mine just on Instagram or something. He posted like he's a bass player. I started out as a bass player. You know, is a good friend of mine who took me on my first tour. My band, so his band took my band, and saying like, you know, like you know, I really idolize Johnny Marr in a sense of his guitar playing. I have his like Mars Guitars book. It shows came out like a year ago. It shows all his guitars, you know,
Hmm.
beautifully photographed. But those without those bass lines, like Johnny Marr is a master songwriter. But without those bass lines, those songs would not. If those bass lines just did what the guitar did, right,
Hmm.
right, in like kind of a song, a more classic songwriter kind of way.
No, they were like really bouncy, like
Dude, absolutely, dude. Like it almost like that groove more than the drums. Like usually with the drums and the bass will be grooving together. And it's not to
hmm.
say I forget his name right now, the drummer. But his drumming was great. It was perfect. But yeah, you're right. Like they had certain bounce to it, and it did things to the music. It still does. I've been listening to a lot of Smiths actually lately. Again, kind of go in like waves. It really adds a harmonic complexity to the songs that wouldn't be there, and harmonic movement. So it's not just like the movement, it's what it's doing like structurally to the harmony of the song. It's incredible. Like I was one of
Yeah.
those Smiths are one of those groups are all four of them. There's
Yeah, dude, it's
you need
crazy, Like I've always like really, really loved Johnny Marr, like the guitar playing, the
mhm,
jang, just everything he does. I just like him. And then watching a million interviews with him, I just like him as a person too. He seems like a really down to earth,
yeah,
cool guy. You know what I mean? And he loves music, so that's dope. Like he
100%.
keeps up with, all the bands and stuff. Like he's a cool dude.
He absolutely is. And he's like he talks about it in that book. Like he like, you know, he became friends with Noel Gallagher from Oasis pretty early on. I think he saw something in them, you know, similar to the Smiths. And
Yeah.
he would just like he needed a guitar for this recording in the Noel Gallagher at the very beginning.
Who I dislike, by the way. If we're gonna talk about pet peeve bands, it's gonna be Oasis. Like they come on, like I'm turning that off. I don't like the Gallagher brothers.
I get it. I'm like, I'm like in the middle. I can appreciate some
Yeah,
of
yeah.
their, like,
The
but
one of
I
them, Noel, like really disrespected skateboarding too. So I was like, oh no, bro.
did he?
After that, yeah, yeah, he said something foul.
Was
Like
it the guitar player, like the Noel, like really?
the
Or was it Liam, the singer?
not the singer, the guitar player.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
Well, he's a very strong opinion on things, so yeah. Well, that is a shame.
yeah, yeah.
But
But
Johnny Marr
anyhow,
gave him a guitar. Just
gave
like,
him
here's this, just
early
like,
on, yeah.
yeah, just like, so like, yeah, I know what you're saying. It's like I too have, if the person is a bad, artist, if they're just shitty and they're just a shit person, I don't really look past that. I can't do that.
Yeah, I just, any interview, I just can't watch them, dude. It's just like, and I love Johnny Marr so much, and I know he likes Noel and everything, but still,
Right.
there's friends I have, a lot of people don't like either. You know what I mean? But I like
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. Absolutely. No doubt about it. Absolutely.
So, like, how did your music choices initially change once you started skating, and you're aware of all the bands and the genres you found in skating? Because, like, I think for all of us, it kind of opens up a little bit of a new world for like uh the types of music, like I wasn't around a bunch of punk rock and post punk and other stuff when I was a kid. So you get to hear
Right.
all that in the skate videos and you're like, oh, what's that? That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, I try to think about pre-skateboarding, but being 11 when I started skateboarding, or really 10, kind of, was it 10 or
Hmm.
11? Before that, it was just, yeah, it was just like the stuff we've been talking about, right? MTV and stuff like that. Um, and and in New Orleans at the time, I didn't have any friends, that older friends, right? Kind of like older sibling types, that would have turned me on to that kind of stuff. And so skateboarding was surely like, yeah, the music of the videos. It was just like, what is this? This is like,
Hmm.
it was so different, right?
Like Agent Orange in those early Vision videos that I got.
Yeah,
I was like, Agent Orange, like I was still like Agent Orange.
absolutely. Like it's, and so I think, you know, and I've said it before, it's like, yeah, skateboarding musically, my life would be musically, like life in general. I mean, but just music wise, where I'm at musically, it's not even possible for it to be the same. Like literally impossible. It's not to say I wouldn't have found stuff otherwise, but I think when you are, you know, exposed to that at such an early age, you know,
Hmm.
it's similar to like people I knew who have older siblings and their older siblings 4 years older than them, and then playing them, like, you know what I mean? Like cool
Yeah.
stuff. It's the same kind of thing, right? It's like, so it's like being exposed to that, it kind of was ingrained in me and like us, you know what I mean? Like from an early age. And so it was just there. So by the time you're 15, 16, and you normally doing it was like normal at that point in time, right? I was like,
Now, were the friends you skated with or went to school with, did they like the same types of music, or did you feel like you just had different tapes, like from your friends that you were skating with?
yeah, I think it kind of evolved. Like, I think some people, they just, it wasn't as, I had some friends that were like really drilled into the music side of things that came out of skateboarding like me. And I had some friends that just, it was just kind of there. They put it on, you know what I mean? But it wasn't as like, kind of obsessed with it, in that sense. But
Hmm.
yeah, I think so. I think especially like,
I'm assuming, like,
kind of think.
because we live, similar experiences, but a lot of people were into hip hop as well early on. And was
Well,
that something, was like some of your friends into hip hop, some of them were metalheads, some of them were more into like punk or something like that?
well, let me like jump back before, because I'm in my mind right now, I'm thinking about New Orleans, 1988, 89. Let
Uh-huh.
me go back to 85. Let's see, 85, more like 86 is when I moved to St. Petersburg. 86, 87. Yeah, 86, 87. And I met, you know, I met Bo first. We would cross paths on bikes and we met. And then I'm like, seriously, going to school in the morning. That's how we met. I've known Bo longer than anyone else in skateboarding. Like
It's crazy.
it's nuts. Total random. Like
I'm
it,
surprised he didn't threaten to beat you up. Like,
no, he was super nice. No. It was one of those things where just like, 12 years old. And but then I don't know how I met Lance and Scott. But anyway, the point is Lance was really into music,
hmm
big time. And he was playing me like early Beastie Boys, like Cookie Puss and stuff, and like
hmm
like the more hardcore stuff. He was into Miami bass
Miami
music.
bass.
Yeah. So he'd play me Miami bass music. So I was like, like turn on to that. He had friends who were in a punk band. His one friend had a band called Toilet Birth. I remember this this flyer they had, like, just so like it was skateboarding. That was skateboarding though, right? It was like
hmm
punk rock or like, Beastie Boys was like kind of like hardcore at the time. It was weird. And then hip hop, you know what I mean? I don't know if Miami bass is considered, is whatever term, rap, hip hop, or whatever.
Yeah.
But then so he turned me on to certain things like that. Was it like Fat Boys and stuff like that. It's like back in the day, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm trying to think where I learned about, like, I got really like obsessed with like Eric B and Rakim and Public Enemy. I think that was when I moved back to New Orleans.
hmm
So for me, it was like Public Enemy, Eric B and Rakim, blanking.
And those played a big role in skateboarding, like, as well, because you'd have like Tommy Guerrero, Nadas, and Gonz always wearing Public Enemy shirts and
Yeah.
hats and different stuff like that. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah, I would like skate like, contests back then. I'd choose like, you could choose your songs or whatever. And I would, one contest would be like Smashing Pumpkins, and one before that was Public Enemy.
okay,
However I felt that day and how I wanted to like the energy I wanted, like, during my run.
right. Yeah, it feels like we were probably more open-minded when we were younger as well to different music. You know what I mean? Maybe, maybe not.
We'll soak it all in, right?
Yeah,
We don't know we
especially when something's new. New shiny things. You're just like, oh, what's this? What's this? What's this?
Yeah, I I thought about it recently, and I don't know why. I think it was just probably having a conversation with my wife. We talk a lot and cool things, and um we're talking. I forget how we got into this conversation, but I think all the like hip hop music that I've really liked throughout the years, always had some sort of aggressive element to it. You know what I mean? And a lot of the music I listen to as well, like, doesn't mean it has to be like, aggressive. You know what I mean? But like, or the
hmm
guitars are loud. You know what I mean? Or the bass line and Follow the Leader, just like, driving, almost like, and like even lately, like, I haven't listened to a lot of like hip hop, but I have been listening to like Run the Jewels. And to me, it's because my ear, what that does is it draws me back. It kind of reminds me of, harkens of that kind of more like aggressive kind of style. You know what I
hmm
mean? And so I turned my son on. He's 7. He's like, Follow the Leader made it into his playlist, which I was like stoked. I was like, because
Nice.
he likes stuff that's like kind of like driving, like it has like, you know, kind of electronic element, not like dance music or anything like that. But he likes,
hmm
he likes Eminem. That's like his big thing. But I'm like, dude, check this out. And he's like, yeah, dude, I like this.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So I thought about this last week. We're gonna jump to 1992, but in 1992, when we went to Houston for a contest, and you were talking about Nirvana a lot, and they just released, I guess, their album. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And we were not having it. We were making fun of Nirvana. We were like, no, Nirvana's whack, Dwayne. Jokingly, of course, but did that bother you in the moment? Or was that the first time you realized, okay, my fellow team members just aren't into what I'm into? And we wouldn't even give it a consideration. We're like, no, fuck it.
I was probably bothered in the moment, like not like, but just like, no, just check it out, and just like, I mean, you get shut down. You get shut down. You're like, fuck, all right, like, you know what I mean, like, but
Yeah.
no, I'm trying to think about when. I think it's when later when we all lived together, in San Diego, probably,
hmm
because I was just so drilled into the things like you're saying, like you maybe when you were younger, we have a wider, you know, net of the
hmm
things that we like. And as we get a little older, like you're not, I'm talking about into your like, early 20s or whatever, kind of like I just honed in. I think it's because I wanted to start playing music. I want to start playing guitar. You know? I didn't start playing bass until we all lived together in SD.
which we'll talk about in a minute. But
Cool.
I think I always thought like me, you, and Scott were really into music. Like we were buying it, we were like
Yeah.
listening to it all the time,
Yes.
consuming
Yes.
it, and the rest of the
Yes.
crew liked music, but they just didn't like it as much as us. And we like different genres. Even you and Scott like different stuff. But did you find more of a kinship with Scott because he liked, uh, I'm trying to think, more similar
Good.
bands?
Yeah, like guitar based, like
Mm-hmm.
indie underground. Yeah, I remember him and
Dream,
I.
like Dream Pop and different stuff he was listening to.
Yeah, I mean, I think him and I talked. I remember we talked polo once, which we both liked. They were on touch and go. Um, but yeah, I mean, him and I both liked. I think guitar based, kind of like you know, I just used the term catch all indie rock at the time because that's kind of what it
Mm-hmm.
was called then, you know. And yeah, and he played, he played drums or whatever. We always talked about like starting a band together, but we live too far from each other. But yeah, I was very, very conscious of you, how you were really drilled into music, like really like for real. Like that was very as oblivious as I was back then to a lot of things because I was just focused on my own whatever obsession. I definitely remember that aspect. And like, you know, other people, I don't know, were you playing like when we go skate? Were you the one popping in like CD in the car when like you go? Was it you mainly? You
Yeah, because I
DJing?
was like out of the
Yeah.
crew, like I was the one that
Yeah.
went and bought all the new
Yeah.
music. You know what I mean?
That's
Like
what I
I was
remember.
there
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
Tuesday to buy all the new music,
Yeah.
whatever it was. Well, after a while, it became mostly hip hop, but like
Yeah.
early on, it was some different stuff. But like everyone used to bag on me so hard about the Smiths back in the day. You didn't, but like Rob, Bo, Sarge, Hill, they'd be like, "The fuck the Smiths," like
Really?
they would just make fun of me and about it, and I would just be like, "Whatever, dude, I like it."
Um, that's I'm surprised. I'm surprised Carter would do that. I'm
Yeah,
surprised
yeah,
at that.
Carter did. They were probably just messing with me, but
Right.
they just didn't like Morrissey. It's not the music or the band, it's Morrissey. And I got it. Like when you're sitting there listening to Morrissey song after song after song, you're like, oh, his voice is kind of droning and he's starting to get on my nerves because he's like super depressed. But like I
Yeah.
didn't look at it like that. I could see how other people might look at it like that, but I didn't look at it like that.
No, that music cheers me up when I'm actually depressed and in like a like a little dark place. Literally listening to that gets me out of it.
Also, skateboarding is like I think it's like at that time I was probably listening to all hip hop and then just the Smiths is like the only other band I listened to. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like they were and Morrissey's like this twee like little dude. You know what I mean? And skateboarding is
Uh-huh.
more like if you're gonna listen to a band, bro, you're gonna listen to Slayer. It's gonna be hard or something. And I'm just like, dude, I like the melodic stuff. I'd rather listen to a Paul McCartney Wings tape. You know what I'm saying? It's just like I like the melodic stuff. What can I say?
Yeah. Yeah, that's I mean that's kind of how I got into like the Pumpkins, like is just because it had that melodic kind of stuff, but then it also could get heavy, you know. But yeah, I was like reverse. I was like the inverse of you. Whereas like I'm listening to mainly like guitar based music, but then like, a little bit of hip hop
I
in there.
don't even.
Like I would like what it was like getting going skating, you know what I mean? And like, like getting in the car with like four or five of us. And then that's where I would hear most of hip hop, you know what I mean? But I was going to like, you know, when we lived together, I went to go see Pantera. That's when I came back with a black eye from being in the pit, Steel Two. You know what I mean? But I was doing the same thing. I was going up to Grand that in PB was a record store across from Ichiban, Music Trader or something.
Yeah, I went there pretty often.
And like I would go and just I remember finding Entombed, Wolverine Blues, Swedish death metal.
Hmm.
I remember buying that there. I do remember certain thing. I remember buying Drop like Jehu Yank Crime, which became one of my their San Diego band, which became one of my favorite rock records of all time. And so yeah, we would just you and I were like that. We would just buy things like, oh, it's on display at the record store. And like, well, I don't know. Back then that usually meant something because I don't think the small labels are paying to have their record displayed. You know what I mean? So
So eventually you decide to pick up the bass, and we're living together in Pacific Beach this time. What was the inspiration for that? Was it like a person, a show you saw, or? something you just always want to do?
So like back in New Orleans, I'd say like because I lived on my own for what was that, a year and a half, almost 2 years by myself before I moved to San Diego, which
Hmm.
I should have moved sooner, but that's a different story. Um, I had friends that, play guitar and all. I remember my friend lending me one of his electric guitars he had, and some cheapos and a little amp at my first apartment. I remember playing and I just didn't click or anything. But just being so into music, and I think like big, like really get me excited to play was like the Smashing Pumpkins for whatever reason. I don't know why, like that made me want to play. Maybe it was just for whatever reason. Um, I'd always had interest because when I was younger, I asked for a guitar when I was like 9 or 10, and I didn't get one,
Hmm.
which I'm still mildly bitter about. Don't worry, parents. It's all right. Everything's
It's
fine.
okay.
My mom's like, I don't remember you ever asking. I'm like, oh, I asked.
Well, I asked.
I remember having conversations with you and our dad. My parents are divorced, but I remember. It's fine. It all worked out. But so it was always there, right? I always had that idea of wanting to play. And then I think once I started to skateboard, though, right? I wanted the guitar before I started skateboarding. And once I
Hmm.
started skateboarding, it took the place of that. I didn't even think about that.
Right.
And I think once I was skateboarding for, at that time, it would have been 9 years when I started playing. I think I'd like, I've gotten like maybe skateboarding wasn't like,
Giving you the fulfillment, and you kind of wanted to find
yeah,
something else to take up a lot of time.
yeah. I'm always wanting to find some new creative thing to kind of like a challenge. And, um, or on some level now, like snowboarding, I'm trying, it's hard to just go snowboard whenever. And then even in music, like, I built this studio I'm in. We moved into this house. We moved from New Orleans to Michigan.
I
And
told you I lived in Michigan before I moved to Ohio, right?
yeah, and what you said, where
Yeah.
again?
Belleville, which
Yeah,
is like in between Ann Arbor and Detroit.
you're that's close to me, dude.
For real?
Yeah,
That's
like
crazy.
Belleville is like I don't have, you know what I mean? Like I would say, let's see. Let me look real quick. I know this isn't cool, but
All right. Yeah, we lived there when I was a kid. My family moved from like Memphis to Kentucky up to Belleville, Michigan, and then we moved down to Ohio.
it's 23 miles from me.
Wow,
Yep.
that's crazy.
Yep.
I haven't been
Yep.
back since I was like 5 years old,
Okay.
4 or 5.
But yeah, with this studio, like I was like, okay, like I built it, and then all I ended up doing was like, playing guitar in here, and like,
Hmm.
and then I'm like, I had nothing really that I wanted to write and record. To be honest, I was just kind of jamming. I was just in like a weird kind of like lull, which is good. It's important creatively. But then lately I've been like buying, like microphones and like buying like, preamps and buying gear and recording and mixing and learning all that. So it's like I'm always having to some new thing I have to be challenged. But so I think that's where the guitar came in. It crept back in. I got like, my passion for music was super strong. And yeah, so it's kind of collectively why it got me into playing, and bass just seemed like a good starting place.
Okay, you mentioned Smashing Pumpkins, which is a good segue. I had to listen, well, everyone in the house had to listen to Smashing Pumpkins over and over and over because that's what you were learning to play, and you drove everyone crazy. But I remember wanting to get out of the house just so I didn't have to listen to the same Smashing Pumpkins song over and
So what you're
over. But
saying is, so you might reference one of Billy Corgan's lyrics of "Let Me Out."
yeah, let me out. Well, but yeah, it got drilled into my head so much. I think like 1 or 2 years later, I ended up going and buying that CD.
No,
Yes.
no.
Yeah. That's so funny, right?
Yeah, it's like kind of like what, some sort of like Stockholm syndrome or something like
Yeah,
that, or
weird.
something like that.
So
Yeah,
now, yeah,
that's what
go
I
ahead.
did, right? I got like guitar magazines that would have the like tablature, and I would learn the song, songs or whatever, and then I was learning to that album as well. It was a great way to learn them.
Yeah.
Sorry to drive y'all fucking nuts.
So now we get to the little passport story here.
Oh,
And
Still
okay,
feel
so
bad
I'm
about
gonna
this.
start this up. One night, Rob and Duane and I don't know who else, maybe Thomas, come to me and they're like, "Yo, dude, we want to go out, but Duane isn't old enough." I think what? Or you didn't have an ID? I don't know what the problem was.
Nobody was because Rob is
Yeah, that's right. We were
he's
20
six.
years old, right?
Yeah. Rob's 6 months younger than
But I
me.
was 21.
Yes.
I had just turned 21 and just got a passport. And
I, I think is it that they had fake IDs? It must be. Would have had to.
yeah, they probably did have
And
fake
I was just
IDs,
too.
man.
I didn't have it together enough to go to
And
a fake
okay,
ID.
so Dwayne doesn't have an ID to get in the bar or the club or wherever they're
Well,
going
you know
that
where
night.
we're going to a gentleman's club
Oh, okay.
by
I didn't
sports arena
know.
by sports arena.
So I have three of my good friends sitting there. Drake, man, just let him use your passport. Drake, let him use your passport. Dude, just let Dwayne use your passport. I'm like, no, dude. They're like, come on, bro, we want to go out. Dwayne wants to come. Let him use your. I'm like, okay, dude, here's my passport. So they go out, and obviously Dwayne doesn't look like me. And
Oh,
so he gets the passport taken, right? But I don't know this. And so like they come home that night and I never ask about it. And like a couple of days go by and I'm like, yo, Dwayne, like just I need my passport back. And Dwayne gives me the excuse, oh, I think it's in my car. Like I'll go grab it here in a little bit. And like that goes on for like a week or two. And I'm like, dude, where's my passport? And he's never giving it to me. And no one's telling me anything. And so one day we're at Wendy's and we're just standing in line. And I have like a week before I'm going to Europe. This is the biggest thing
no,
that pissed me off.
no,
It's a week
no,
before I go to Europe
no.
and Rob is standing there and I'm like, dude, Dwayne's got to give me my passport. Like we're going to Europe in like a week or whatever. And Rob just starts laughing and he's like, dude, Dwayne still hasn't told you? And I was like, told me what? He's like, dude, Dwayne got your passport taken that night. So instead of waiting to get my food and drive home, I was so pissed. I walked right out the door, walked straight to our apartment. I was like, dude, I'm so mad at Dwayne right now. And I get
Of
there,
course.
you're not around. Finally you come home and like I cool off a bit. I'm like, Dwayne, you should have just told me, dude, I have to go to Europe. That means I have to drive to Los Angeles, get a hotel or whatever, because it takes like 8 hours
Yeah,
or longer than
yeah,
that at the passport office. I got to
yeah,
stand in line like
yeah,
literally for 5 hours to get up to there to get my passport. And
yeah,
they still don't give it to you that day. You got to come back the next day to get it. And I was like,
yeah.
dude, he put me through so much trouble when he could have just said, John, I lost your passport. The next morning, I could have said, where? I would have driven there and been like, my passport here. You know what I'm saying? Like, I need my passport back. But you just didn't tell me. So anyhow, I ended up kicking Dwayne's car. I see him at Pacific Beach a couple of days later. I ended up kicking in his car door and probably putting a dent in it. But then we were even after that, and everything was cool.
Yeah. I deserved it. I deserve more. Horrible, horrible. I was like, the bouncer took it. The bouncer
Yeah,
just looked. The bouncer looked at it. He's like, "This isn't you," and just took it.
I
Like
just
the
wish you
pet.
would have told me.
I know, but I no, of course.
I think it's a funny story, dude.
Oh, it's whole.
I
The
was
fact.
mad in that moment because of I knew what I had to go through to get another passport
I know.
in such a short time. You know what I'm saying?
It was insane. I still can't believe like I thought about that because I knew I'm like, oh, we're gonna talk about the passport story. I know we are. I was like, how can a bouncer at a place like that just like I'm gonna take this passport instead of just like giving the passport I can go and hit the road. It's a passport. It's like a federal document.
Yeah. That's why, like, I know they would have given it probably back to me if I would have done that the
Absolutely.
next day.
That's one of those things. That's one of those things where I'm like, if I could redo that one over again.
Yeah, that's okay. Like, I might have done the same thing to you, dude. You just like between friends, there's just some things you
I
do
just
and you
felt
mess
I
up.
was oh man, I was like I felt so bad. I was like, oh my god, he's gonna fucking kill me. He's gonna
Yeah.
kill me. And it was like I just made it worse.
Well, I wouldn't have, like I said, wouldn't probably have been as mad if I knew I didn't have to run up, do all that crap in LA,
Yeah,
stand in the
yeah.
passport line. Dude, one time I went up there and I saw Jason Lee in line. It might have been that time because I had to go up there and get another one. Jason Lee was getting his passport.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. Another time I went up there and I made it up to the floor where you talk to all the people and you're waiting in line to finally go in.
Yeah.
And Jesse Martinez comes out the elevator and just starts yelling at everybody, dude, cussing them out. Just like he's gonna beat up people behind the desk, you know what I'm saying? He's
Whoa.
super aggro. And there must be like 500 people packed into this tiny room because it's a line all the way
What?
up to get up. And like I'm like, that's Jesse Martinez. This is the coolest thing I've ever seen. He's going off on all these passport people, you know what I mean? And I was just like, yes. But anyhow,
See, you got a good story out of all that.
yeah,
There you
that's
go.
my passport stories, bro.
Oh my God. So bad.
But
I've actually been to LA to get a rush passport, so I know exactly what you're talking
it's the handrail that Nada skates in the front too. Those like one of the earliest handrail slides he did was that handrail in the
about.
front pass.
Yes. White stairs.
I think so, yeah.
I think
It's been a
maybe.
while since I've been there, but
I know. I know.
so how long did it take to form your first band and what was its name and what type of music did you play?
So let's see. I started playing bass when we lived together at the workshop house, and that was 94. So I arrived there in March of 94. And so I don't know, it must have been summer, June or so. I probably got to, because I wanted to get a bass like pretty soon after. Pat Duffy was supposed to help me get, because I didn't know. And he lived down the street, if you remember. And then he was on tour. And I was like, I can't wait. So I got it. And then that would have been, so that was 94. In 96, I moved a friend of mine from New Orleans who I knew we had similar musical tastes. He was a guitarist. And I moved him out to San Diego. I could convince him to move out. And that's when I moved out of workshop house. I was with let's see, where did I move after that? Tom
You
Gray and
lived
Chris's
right you
house.
lived like in the hills, like either
Well,
Hillcrest or
no,
like there's a
first I moved
place.
with Tom Gray, Gray and Chris Pugh,
Oh, okay.
Tom Duffy, with them for a little bit, and then that's when Danny came, and then we moved like some more like area like Hillcresty, North Park esque, where there's record
Mm-hmm.
shops and like venues, music venues and stuff like that. It was no accident. And so I'd say it was probably 2 years, maybe 2 years before I started playing. But we didn't really have like a solidified band yet. At first, it was called Interstate, and he was with me and my friend Danny, the guitar player from New Orleans. But
Mm-hmm.
then we eventually we kind of switched some of the other members, and it became the Interstate 10, because the Interstate 10 was what brought us from New Orleans out almost all the way to San Diego. You know what I mean? Um, and that was kind of like an indie rock that had like a little like some shoegazer vibes,
Mm-hmm.
at times like that. I would say, maybe a little Swerve Driver influence, you know what I mean, in there, a little bit of MBV. But Danny was really into like writing songs, really into like power pop. He didn't really, it wasn't that style. He would do that later on, but just kind of like indie rock that was kind of had little shoegaze flavors, I'd say. I played bass in that.
Cool. I love shoegaze bands.
Yeah, all the stuff that I'm writing now is stuff that I kind of always wished I could have done. Not really, but in the past. It's like I've kind of taken all my like musical influences, all.
Was that
And
your first show was with
yes.
Interstate 10? And I have a photo from your
No
first show
way.
here. I'm showing on the screen.
No way. I had my hair all dyed crazy.
Yeah, that's your first show, bro.
No
We went and
way,
saw it.
dude.
Yeah.
Where was that at the Velvet?
I'm trying to think. It was right
On
near the
Kettner?
airport. It was
Yeah.
near the airport.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the Velvet. That was my first show. I remember it was not a pleasant experience. I was so nervous. It was really yeah, I had massive jitters, um, which went away eventually. But that's crazy that you have that. That's
I
amazing.
know. So did your playing style change as your music interests grew and evolved? Or did you stick with the bass for long, or did you start experimenting with other instruments?
So I'd say in like 97, it was even, I think even when we lived together at the workshop house, I think I borrowed, if memory serves me correctly, Chris Reed, who would later go on to do workshop
Mm-hmm.
graphics and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he's doing a painting of my family. Um,
Nice.
but I think he lent me an acoustic guitar. I could be, I could have that wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I started messing around with the guitar. So like not too long after the bass, but I didn't, I was playing bass in bands. And then the Interstate 10 on our last tour, our second guitar player, we parted ways with, and I remember it was a three piece and our drummer. We got a replacement drummer, and I played guitar on like one song live. We had like droning kind of keyboard, bass keyboard that was going on, and so that was kind of like that was the only band I played bass in. Like that was like proper band. I played bass and sat in with like other bands later on, but
Mm-hmm.
it would after that I would play guitar, and so that changed. That changes your kind of whole. I love playing bass still, but that changed everything. But I think throughout, like, yeah, I mean, music that I was getting into, you know, I was really into My Buddy Valentine. That kind of led me to Brian Eno. Um,
I love the MGMT song, Brian Eno.
oh, is there? Did they have
Yeah, they have a song Nick called Brian. I think it's labeled Brian Eno, the
really?
name of the song. Yeah, yeah, I do like Brian Eno stuff too.
I
Like,
got into him, and because I mean, it was like taking like the weird ambient psychedelic parts from like band stuff and it just being just that stuff. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. And then like, I then quit. Look at which band I quit at the time because I just want to do my own thing. Oh yeah, that's when I quit Camera Obscura, who we had just had our 25th anniversary reissue of our only album, which was on Friday. But I quit that band and then I started doing like ambient solo guitar stuff, like looper pedals and all kinds of effects, which was kind of
hmm
influenced by like the stuff I was listening to. And then Brian Eno kind of led me to. I mean, I moved to New York and then I learned about like all the kind of minimalist composers that kind of
yeah.
group that kind of grouped in with Philip Glass, but it's very different. Like
Oh,
Lamont Young, Terry Riley.
and that was gonna be my next question. Like kind of what led you on the path to create the kind of experimental music
Yeah,
compositions, more like I don't know, would you call them like classically tinted
yeah. I mean,
compositions?
the
Because it's
yeah,
like far removed from like popular music.
yeah. Well, what was happening is it was I think in that world of like you know classical music. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Serious art music. There's all kinds of terms for it. You know what I mean? But in like these music conservatories or music departments at schools, there was a change of the tide in like like late 50s, early 60s, right? Which there was a change in the whole country, right? It was like leading towards what would happen in the 60s, like
hmm
um Bob Dylan didn't start just doing what he was doing in like the early 60s because out of nowhere, you know what I mean? That so and so these music students just wanting to get weirder, you know what I mean? Like things are just getting stranger musically speaking,
hmm
you know what I mean? And so like that's when these like minimalist composers, Terry Riley,
John Glass. Was John Glass, is he one of them?
Philip Glass,
Philip Glass, yeah, I'm sorry.
Steve Reich,
See, right.
who was, more processed percussionist. He would be more similar to Philip Glass, but then the other Terry Riley and Lamont Young were more drony,
hmm
more kind of, and that's when I started getting heavily influenced by them and learning the tuning systems that those two, Riley and Young used and still use it to this day. But yeah, so yeah, I mean, that was a good question because it's like the things that I'm listening to kind of drew me, but it was all connected though, right? It's like listening to
hmm
Dinosaur Jr., right? Which comes from the early skateboard videos we're talking about, right? Speed Freaks. My Bloody Valentine. Well, Jay Mascis and Kevin Shields, My Bloody Valentine are good friends.
Yeah, there's a certain sonic quality
Yeah.
going on, like this sonic drone that's happening, like undertones in those music. You know what I'm saying? Even that song I sent you by the radio department the other day,
Yeah.
it's
Yep.
like that noisy guitar. There's like this certain harmonic that's going on underneath that I find like really appealing, when it's like
Absolutely.
loud and like when it's loud, it's best.
100%. And that's kind of, yeah, it's talking about earlier too. There's always been some sort of extreme, I said aggressive, but that was probably the wrong word, extreme element, even if that extreme element is volume. Because, yeah, when you hear things at certain volumes, you hear psychoacoustic effects. There's things that happen inside of your brain because of where your ears are taken that don't exist. They're not in the air. They only exist in your own like neural pathways of your ears and going to your brain.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's a wild thing, right? It's like, but yeah, it's like, Dinosaur Jr. and My Bloody Valentine. It makes complete sense. And then My Bloody Valentine, I think, like Brian Eno, and like Eno said at one point in time, Lamont Young is the granddaddy of us all. He's the one composer I was talking about. So it's all, for me, it's all completely natural and linked. And I know how a lot of people, and I'm not saying you're saying that because I've been told this before, is like, how did you get from that skateboarding to being like a minimalist composer or something? I'm like, it makes total sense in my brain.
Yeah.
Just natural. It was a very natural path. It just, like,
Mm-hmm.
life.
Now, is there any equipment that like you're really in love with? Like,
Mm.
I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
know that much
yes.
about equipment, obviously, besides like what people make with hip hop, like MPCs and drum
Yeah.
machines and the old SP 1200 and stuff like that. Like I know that stuff, but
Yeah. So I got, let's see. I can grab some, I'm trying to see some stuff I can grab. So this guitar,
mm-hmm.
see this.
She's a beaut.
It's a small shop, Healy guitars. It's Trevor Healy. He makes these, and I've known him for like 20 years.
Uh-huh.
And he can never was in a place to drop serious some serious cash, which to me is like, back in the day, anything over like $600.
Right.
And so he does all of these custom, he builds some that he will put in, he lives in Western Massachusetts. He'll put in this one music store there, but other than that, he does very like 10 a year, all custom order or whatever. And I got this, but yeah, it's like, Offset. The model's called a Healer. It was like a jazz master, which Jay
Uh-huh.
Mascis uses, and also Kevin Shields. And it's like
Oh,
the trumpet.
Tame
No, this
Impala. Is that Tame Impala?
no Kevin Shields and My Bloody Valentine.
My Bloody Valentine. Okay,
Yeah,
what's Tame the dude from Tame Impala's
I
name?
don't know his name. I haven't listened to a lot of them, but I do like.
Kevin. It might be Kevin something they say.
Yeah, I think you
Yeah,
might
but
be right. My
go
wife, she's put that on like on road trips and all, and I do like it. But yeah, so this thing, kind of always wanted to have like one, like, I did have a guitar similar to this, but like a real shitty one that was like $200 when I played like back in the day. And I was like, all right, so this, like, as soon as I got it, like I played it and I was like it's been my guitar for 5 years. It was the most comfortable thing I'd ever played, and it sounds amazing. And it's got like, like a metal pick guard and just like super amazing. It's got this like black top with like the back of it is like mahogany, but the top is like black.
Black. That looks sweet,
It's
dude.
straight grain, like straight grain pine, is it? Yeah, that came off a 100-year-old building in Western Massachusetts. That was like the
Wow.
carpeting. Yeah, so that's kind of like my big thing lately that I love. And then I'll I got this recently, and this thing's crazy. This was I built, but you have to see the frets. Can you see how they're all like staggered and everything?
Yeah.
So this is to play in the tuning system that I was talking about earlier, just intonation, like, which I got, alert about from those composers.
Uh-huh.
But you slide them around, like you can change the tuning of and it's all each string. It's crazy.
That's crazy, dude.
Yeah. So this
I've
is like,
never even
I know. Well, it came from Turkey, like the country. Like it's like there's a classical guitar player, um,
dude.
professor who he like got the patent to this. This is like an old like but he like, and then his partner like completely changed it. But like, he's a classical guitar. But he has it like on classical guitars, and I got in touch with him a long time ago because of that. And anyway, it's incredible, but it's like 9 months in the making, and it's like I'm not a brand. It's just like I got the body from like this one company that makes like kind of like replica bodies, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's a Fender Telecaster style or whatever. But I just got it yesterday. So I'm just starting to mess with it. Like that's what I was been doing.
New toy.
Yeah, like it's well, see, when you get a regular guitar, the frets are on there. There's no, you just start playing it. This I have to like choose. You get to choose. It's like getting like a box of like crayons,
Mm-hmm.
right? You know what I mean? It's like this is the colors you have, or getting like a crayon kit when you're like you make your own colors and blend them. It's takes a lot of time, but once you get there, you got some more unique colors to work with. That's kind of how I look at it.
Now, do you remember coming to our house in Encinitas when we lived with Christy Brosh, Tim Brosh's sister, and she played classical guitar. She was,
She did?
yeah, she was one night I didn't know this. One night she just broke it out and was like, I was like, dude, I've never even seen anyone play guitar like that. Doing like chamber music, like really classical guitar, and I was blown away. It was really like really a beautiful,
I did not.
playing.
I don't remember. I studied classical for 2 years,
Hmm.
2015 to 17. It's extremely hard. It's
Yeah,
such a
that's
hard
why I
thing.
was blown away. She was like, and I was like, dude, that's beautiful. Like, why don't you do that all the time? Like, she should just be sitting around doing that, making people happy. You know what I mean?
Right? Did she go to school for that?
I think she did.
Yeah, it's when people start young. I had to get double carpal tunnel surgery because it fucked up my hand so much, dude.
Mhm.
It's brutal. I don't remember that, but I remember
Yeah,
that.
they started a band, which is more just like punk band, and she just didn't, she was just like this. She didn't play. It wasn't, but yeah, they
Right.
only did that for a brief period. Now, are there any genres that you really hate or have a negative physical reaction to, or maybe like bands or artists? Like, because I have like a long list of pet peeve artists that like really drive me crazy.
Genres that I can't reggaeton. I can't reggaeton. That's because it's the same beat every time.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't do reggaeton either.
It drives me up a
I
wall.
love Jamaican music though. Like I
Yeah.
love reggae, the old school ska, rock steady, roots, reggae, like love it all.
When I was younger, I did not like reggae. I wasn't as far as Billy Waldman, as far as hating it.
Hey, reggae music, I
I
hate it.
hate it. But like, because I wasn't ready for that chill vibe, I wanted something that had more energy. But I think later on, and then my wife, she was like when we met, she had a bunch of records of that kind of stuff. And she knew a lot about that, and like it turned me on to that whole realm. And then there's a record store in New Orleans called Domino Sound. The owner Matt, amazing dude, and
Hmm.
he would release some of that stuff. He would go to Jamaica and like get like meet these artists, old artists, and he put out
Yeah.
cassettes and like some LPs. And so like I learned about that like 15 years ago. I started to really like you know really appreciate.
Yeah, if you want to collect music, dude, reggae is the genre because
Really,
it's endless releases through
dude.
every decade from like the 50s on. Not just
Right.
reggae, just older Jamaican music
Yeah.
as well. And you kind of have to really get into it. I guess, our generation, we got like Bob Marley and Peter Tosh drilled into us a lot. So we were just like, oh, it's just kind of like whatever. It's just background music. But then you start to listen to like a lot of the other artists and what they have to say. And, um, it's not all just Rastafarian music, you know what I'm saying? Some of the
Right.
earlier genres, like Lovers Rock with the singer Gregory Isaacs, you know what I mean? Beautiful voice. Like you also can like the production techniques that they had over there is really interesting, like the early production techniques they had. So I find that really interesting. All right. Desert Island question. You get one artist, their whole catalog to bring with you. What artist are you gonna pick?
Desert Island. Am I on the desert island by myself?
Yeah. So you can either pick an artist with a small and tight catalog or one with just like endless recordings.
Man, this is a tough one between Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin. I think I'm gonna have to go with Led Zeppelin because it's more varied as far as like the material, you know what I mean? Like all different vibes.
Mm-hmm.
All the vibes are there.
Yeah.
Been one of my favorites. One, grew up with both of those bands and love them very much. It's hard because I want to pick Sabbath because I have two Sabbath posters like right behind me. I love, but like I think if I'm stuck on a desert island, I'm gonna need a little more variance.
Okay.
So Led Zeppelin.
Good choice. All right. If you could craft the perfect musician out of parts or qualities of other musicians, what would your creation be?
Whew.
I'm thinking like, like the voice of Prince, maybe the guitar skills of Johnny Marr, the looks of, you know, I don't know, some or however you want to do it.
Right. This is a tough one, man. This is tough. This is something I've never thought about, and like I'm impressed by the question, but I'm also a little perplexed. Give me a minute here to
Yeah.
ponder. You can edit this out if
Oh
you
no,
need.
that's okay. I'll think about it too.
So
I'd probably take
artists. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, what is
yeah,
yours?
yeah. I don't know, man. I'd probably take, the guitar skills of Johnny Marr. Maybe like I'm trying to think of a singing voice. Maybe like Prince's. I wouldn't say it's my favorite, but I know he's got like the falsetto and the lower register. And I don't know. Maybe like the dancing skills of James Brown. Like I don't know, dude. It's a hard question. You know what I
That's a
mean?
really hard question because it's like I find that my favorite guitarists are usually they're not vocalists.
Hmm. Yeah, but it don't matter. You can just mix and match.
Yeah.
Like
No, I
I
know, but
got
like,
Dolly
yeah,
Parton's songwriting skills with like you know, Jimmy Page's beautiful playing or whatever.
yeah. I'm stumped on this one. I am because I think coming at it like from like a musician standpoint, like I'm like,
Like I'll have Tommy Emmanuel's fingers.
yeah, Tony, I feel like Tony Iommi from Sabbath, he has to be in there just from his like sheer will to like play after getting his fingers chopped off and like just like his attitude. I think his whole vibe because he was just like he's like this Italian and like British guy. It's just kind of like whatever. Like, just like, you know what I mean? And then like the kind of like obsessive, like experimental kind of mind of Kevin Shields and My Bloody Valentine, who's like doesn't settle. Like he'll take 10 years to record an album or whatever, you know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
that, right? So you have like Iommi who's more like on the cuff, like just like make it happen. You have someone like that who's like, I'm gonna hone this one thing and obsess about it forever. Cause I feel like I do that a lot. And sometimes I wish I could just like kind of like just on the fly, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
So maybe like that kind of thing, like but like both they're playing maybe together, which would be fucking weird, which is cool. Um, songwriting, songwriting stylings of like Mar. I really like how he can make these little short songs. Like that's what he does, mainly, and like he just kind of like throw that in there. As far as voice, for some reason Jeff Buckley's voice was like popping out for some reason. I don't know. He has like kind of magical kind of voice.
Hmm.
Um, that is a tough one. That's kind of what I got right now. Like I'm probably gonna text you like tonight and be like, "Oh
Oh
shit,
no,
this
I
is
forgot about.
this is what I got." All right, take the legs of so and so, smash them on the torso. Like, bro, have you been drinking? It's just like some sort of weird Frankenstein. Like, I don't know, man. Like, shit.
Some
That is like,
Cronenberg monster.
right. Like, that's such a like,
It's
that's
a
not a
hard
head.
question, but
It's
it's
a
just
heavy
something
question.
that pops into my head. Like, what qualities of if I could create like the perfect solo musician or artist, what qualities would I take from each one? And it's really hard because Especially, I think, like for me, the voice would be one of the hardest ones, just to pick a voice. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's like taking someone's voice that you know and then like juxtaposing that onto like someone else's
onto
playing.
your created monster.
Right. Okay, monster. You have to wear the skin mask of Robert Plant. You know what I mean?
Now, is there anything you want to promote or anything? Any records? Where can people get some of your music? And
Um, yeah, I'll do that. I'm always like, don't do that kind of stuff. But so like I mentioned earlier, Camera Obscure has a reissue of our album. It's not the Camera Obscure from Scotland. There was two of us. We're
mm-hmm.
from San Diego. So the reissue of the album to change the shape of an envelope. That just was reissued, remastered, like really well. That's on Solid Brass Records. I have another like Duane Pitre solo thing. It's actually an ensemble. It's with a brass trio. Um, that is um, that is in the works of coming out sometime this year. I won't give too much into that because I don't want to give too much away because it's not announced or whatever. And I'm just working on slowly a batch of songs for a new project that I have a name for it all, but I'm going to hold that back too. But it's it's kind of like taking everything I've kind of learned and loved about music, um, and trying to fit that all together. You know what I mean? Kind of like more so like old loves, but like with my new like the way my mind and creativity as a musician is now, which is very different, right, from the times we loved them back then versus now. And so kind of revisiting stuff while interjecting new stuff as well and making these combos that maybe I wouldn't have made. But it's uh it's been super fun. But that'll hopefully eventually come out, but we'll see.
Okay. Do you still? When's the last time you listened to Love or Arthur Lee?
Love the band.
The band Love, yeah.
Oh man, probably a long time. That's one of those things that like that falls in that category of music that I really enjoy listening to, but I never put it on.
Yeah. Or you listen to it so much when you first start listening to it that you don't really need to hear it again for the rest of your life until, but every once in a while you might hear a song and be like, oh yeah, I really like that.
Yeah, it's I think I did that too. Like I really like I'm like I obsess on something. I get so drilled in and like some of those bands of the past, it's because of that. Like they don't kind of carry over to like now. I still listen to them here and there,
Yeah.
but there's some that I can put on. Like we've mentioned the Smiths so much today. Like that's like that like My Buddy Valentine, Black Sabbath is certain music that is just carried through that I've continually listened to.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? In waves, not like every day, not even like I might go a year without like I'm listening to whatever.
Right.
That's the drastic end of things. But yeah, there's like it's that stuff where like I'll hear it like on like a TV show or a movie. I'm like, oh wait, what is that again? I'll look
Yeah.
it up. I'll put it in my like in my like in my library on Apple Music, whatever. And then I'll listen to like two songs that I won't listen to.
Be over it. Yeah. I always think of Neil when I hear Love. If I think of or
Really?
hear Love. Yeah. Blender. Because that's the first
Yeah.
time I heard Love. I was like, I've never heard of Love in my life until he started playing it. And then Heisman started playing it. And yeah.
What the one thing that stands out to me of Blender turning me on to, there was several things, but Gigi Allen.
Oh, really? Yeah, see, I
I'm
knew about Gigi Allen when I was a kid because,
really
yeah, because the punks around where I lived liked Gigi Allen. They had a Gigi Allen like bootleg VHS tape they'd play in the skate shop. And then he also did a show right down the street from my skate shop at the bar where all my friends like hung out with and worked. And I didn't go, but yeah, like, it was like 19, like right, maybe like the year I moved to Dayton, like 91, something. That's when he did the show there.
really.
Yeah.
Yeah, this would have been the summer of '91, right? When you and I shared a room,
Mm-hmm.
and then was it Heinzman, Neil, and who else lived together? What's his name? Um,
Claire. No,
I don't
Claire
think
didn't live there.
no,
Phil.
Phil. Yes, And I remember hanging out, and then and Neil would play me some stuff on record because he knew he was like, I'm drilled into music in this way, and like so he played me some stuff. But I remember playing, yeah, I was just like, whoa, this is fucking crazy. Dude.
Yeah, dude.
He was saying some shit. I don't know, man. Just like I remember like not being like, I'm gonna go listen to this again. But it was one of those things though, you had to hear it and be like, whoa, this is music can be this for better
Yeah,
or worse, whatever, you know.
I just think of Love because he played that, and then he always had like I go over to his house and he had like a Yardbirds record. Uh, there he had a couple Yardbirds records, and yeah, he had his little setup downstairs. But anyhow, thank you, Duane, so much for doing this, brother. Good to
Absolutely.
talk to you.
Good to talk to you as well, my brother.
Yeah,
Awesome.
thank you, bro.
Man.